Alright, welcome back to Crabby Days, and today we're going to learn how to play Lost Ruins of Arnak, which is one of my favorite games to come out last year. Thematically, we're a bunch of explorers going onto the island, scoring the most amount of points, but mechanically it is just worker placement with deck building mashed up together in an awesome package, and that's what we're going to cover. Alright, so this is going to be the rules and setup video. Click the link below, I'll have a playthrough and I'll have also the expansion stuff covered. And three things before we start: please like, subscribe, and comment on my YouTube channel, that would be great. Alright, let's get started. Alright, so for the setup, as you can imagine, like most games, you're going to start off by putting out your game board. Now for this one, the board is double-sided. So you do have a bird side and a snake side. The only difference in the two is the research track on the right, different payments and different options when going up. There's some slight different rules when picking the snake side, which I will mention at the end of this video if you are interested. They suggest for your first playthrough to play with the bird side. Alright, but that's the main board. There is a secondary board included in the box. In my opinion, totally superfluous, but this board should be sitting at the bottom of the main board, but it becomes really long, so you must have a big table. If you're like me and you play on a square table and have limited space, I would suggest either don't play with this board or have it sitting on the right like this. Alright, but this board, all it does is hold the different resources and tiles in the game. So you have all the resources separated, you have the level 1 and level 2 site tiles, and you have the guardians, make sure they're shuffled, and you also have the 3 stacks of assistants, 3 stacks of 4 tiles each. Now the player pieces, each player is going to have a magnifying glass and a notebook. Normally they would be sitting on these 4 spots over here, but if you're not playing with this board like I do, just have them at the bottom of the track like so. For the rest of the main board, fairly simple to set up. You're going to have 2 decks of cards. This is sort of a deck builder, so all the cards in the game have the exact same back, but the blue cards are the artifact cards. You're going to shuffle them, put them on the top left, flip over the first card, and on the other side are the item cards. Those are the beige cards. You're going to shuffle them and put out 5 different cards. Alright, and in the middle you're going to have the stack of fear cards. Alright, let's keep going down. So right below this, you're going to have the staff, which does point to the current round. So this is the round tracker. And as you can see throughout the game, it will be moving a little bit to the right each time. Alright, and just below that, on the left-hand side here, these are the sites / worker placement spots we are going to be visiting throughout the game. Alright, it does need to be pre-populated with some idols. So what you're going to do is put them all face down, shuffle them all together. And you're going to put 1 on each of the level 1 sites, flipping them over, and put 2 on each of the level 2 sites, flipping over only 1 of each pair. All right, it's going to look like this. All right, that's it for the sites. Now let's go to the research track. All right, in this section, this is where you're going to place the bonus tiles on the available square spaces. Keep in mind though, there is a restriction on player count, so these 2 are only used in a 4-player game and these 2 in a 3 and 4-player game. All right, the rest of the bonus tiles could get thrown back into the box, except up here in the top right, you'll create a small stack equal to the amount of players. You're going to sort of do the exact same thing with the temple tiles up here, always set up in the same exact configuration, but the number of tiles per stack equals the amount of players. So in a 4-player game, play with all of them. In a 3-player game, 1 of each should be thrown back into the game box. And finally, for the game board, the only restriction between a 2, 3, and 4-player game is the amount of spaces that are available at these base locations where you send out your workers. All right, that's where we're given these blocking tiles. All right, these little waves. Now, in a 4-player game, we're not playing with these, throw them back in the game box. In a 2-player game, you're going to cover up the double boot worker placement spot on each of these locations. All right, like so. And in a 3-player game, what you're going to do is you're going to shuffle these. You're going to take 3 randomly. And if you flip them over, it's going to tell you which spots get covered up. So in this location, the money spot, the arrowhead spot, and the gem spot are going to be covered up for the rest of the game. The other 2 tiles could get returned back into the game box. And finally, there's the player setup. So each player is going to get a player board with 2 workers. You do need to set up their initial deck of cards, which is going to contain 4 cards of their color and 2 fear cards. You can get those from the middle fear deck right over there. Give this a good shuffle before you start and put in their deck out here on the left. Next, figure out who first player is going to be and give them this token. All right, first player is going to start with 2 coins. Second player is going to start with a compass and a coin. Third player is going to start with a compass, 2 coins. And if you are playing 4 players, they're going to start with 2 compasses and 1 coin. And there you go. That's the setup. We're pretty much ready to go. Let's go to rules. Alright, rules overview time here for Lost Ruins of Arnak. So like I mentioned in the intro, this game is 50% worker placement game. So you're going to be using this section of the board over here to put out your workers, getting various benefits from different sites that we're going to be uncovering. And it's also 50% deck building game. So every single round, you're going to draw a certain amount of cards from your deck. And the cards are multi-use, so you're going to be either using them for their icons, which are mainly used when you're putting out your workers, or you're going to be using them for their middle text activated ability, whatever you may have. All right, but that's the main structure of the game. All right, now the game is going to last 5 rounds. At the end of 5 rounds, whoever has the most points is going to win the game. And points are always indicated by little purple sort of triangle on all the cards / tokens or whatever you may have. Guardians even have some points on them. But you're going to calculate all of that stuff that you have in your possession. And whoever has the most points is going to win the game. So watch out for those purple icons. All right, so now how is a round structured? All right, so every single round, so each of the 5 rounds, what you're going to do is you have your deck of cards, and the first thing you're going to do is you're going to draw 5 cards. So every player is going to start with 5 cards in their hand. All right. After that, in turn order, so starting with the person with this token, they're going to perform one of the 6 different actions in the game. Once you perform one of the 6 actions, you're going to move on to the next player. All right, and you're just going to keep looping around the table till everyone's passed. All right, passing is one of the actions you can do in the game, and once you pass, you're out of the round. All right, but once everyone is passed, that's the end of the round. You're going to do a cleanup, and then you're going to move on to the next round. You're going to move the idol over, and you're going to do the exact same steps. All right, you're going to draw 5 more cards and do it again and again and again. All right, so now what we're going to tackle is we're going to go through the different actions that you can do in the game. Then we're going to talk about endgame scoring, and then there you go. You got all the concepts of the game down. All right, so the first action is buying cards, aka improving your deck. All right. Now, there are 2 different types of cards in this game. There are item cards and there are artifact cards. All right, and there's some slight differences between the 2. All right, first, the item cards, they always cost money, and the cost of the card is indicated on the bottom left of the card. So if I want to buy this dog card, it would cost me 3 coins. I would pay the general supply, and then I would take this card and add it to my deck. Now, unlike most deck builders where it gets played into your discard pile, you're going to place it underneath your deck, all right, without activating the card. All right, those are item cards. For artifact cards, a little bit different. First, they always cost compasses instead of coins. All right, and second, you get to activate the card right away without having to pay the tablet cost. So pretend that it has no cost, and you get to activate it. After activating the card, reading the text, you don't put it underneath your deck. Artifact cards get placed into your discard pile, which is the cards that you're currently playing that round. All right, so those are the 2 differences between the 2. Now, whether you buy an artifact card or a item card, the card row gets pushed towards the staff, and the next card gets placed from the top of the same type of card that you bought. All right, so in this case, it would be this card, but if I would have bought a dog card, all these cards would shift to the left, and you flip over to the next item card. All right, the second action is playing cards from your hand. All right, now I'm going to pause 2 seconds. I'm strictly talking about cards without the lightning bolt symbol, because lightning bolts reference something called quick actions. I'm going to have a whole other section later on talking about quick actions and how they work. But cards without a lightning bolt do require your full turn action to play the card. All right, so on my turn, let's say I want to play this card. I'm going to gain the benefit from that card, whether it be resources, playing characters on the board, moving up the tracks, whatever it may be. After you play the card, get the benefit, it's going to go into your active discard area, then it's going to move on to the next player. All right, pretty simple. Now for artifacts, unlike items, it does require a payment of a tablet to play the card. All right, the first time you purchase it, you activate it for free, but every subsequent time you do need to pay a tablet. All right, you pay the tablet, activate the card just like an item, again, get the resources, move your characters, whatever it may be, and then again, you're going to add it to your active discard area. All right, and then we'll move on to the next player. The only extra note I do have to give is fear cards never give you an ability, so you can't actually play this as a card. You can only use it as a symbol when I talk about the next action. All right, so the third action is the digging at a site action, which is essentially the worker placement action of the game. So every round we are given 2 workers, and you're going to be taking one of them as an action and playing them out onto the game board on one of the available white circle spots. This is worker placement, so the spots do get blocked if somebody else goes there. All right, but if it's available, you can send out your worker, even if there's a guardian there, even if it's an undiscovered site. I'm going to talk about some of the special rules to the undiscovered sites in a couple of seconds, but essentially worker placement rules, you send out your worker, you'll get the benefit of the white section just above where you sent out your worker. All right, every single spot is essentially just getting resources and adding them into your personal supply. All right, but it is not free like most worker placement games to put out your worker. You do have a travel cost. All right, so the cost is the travel icon where you're putting your worker. So for example, if I were to come over here, I would have to pay a car icon to go there. All right, that's where the icons on the top left of your card come into play. All right, so I can discard a car into my active area, discard area over here, to then send out my worker and then get the benefit of that spot. All right, they all work the same way. I can go over here and use a fear card instead, discard it into my active discard to then send my worker there. All right, but it's not a one-to-one relationship. You don't need to send a boot to go to a boot. There is sort of a travel hierarchy. All right, it might be a little bit confusing, but essentially better cards can pay for lower ranked cards. So anything could be used to represent a boot. For a car, you can use a car or a plane. For a boat, you can use a boat or a plane. And for a plane, you can essentially play a plane or pay 2 gold. All right, which basically says you can use 2 gold to represent any icon that you want. So if you don't have any cards in your hand or you don't have a plane, you can just spend 2 gold into the general supply and then put out your worker without having to spend a card. All right, the undiscovered sites are a little bit more complex, all right, but you're always going to follow these exact steps. First, you're going to still spend the exact same travel cost to send your worker there. And in addition, you do need to spend some compasses to discover that site. So to go to a level 1, you have to spend 3 compasses to the general supply. And for a level 2, you're going to spend 6 to the general supply. After that, you're going to gain the amulet of that site. All right, you're going to gain the benefit for it right away as well. This one gets me a compass back. After that, you're going to place this amulet onto your player board in the 10 section. We're going to talk about all of this during the quick action section later on in this video. But for right now, all you need to know is you gained an amulet. All right, next, whether it's a level 1, you're going to get a level 1 site. If it's a level 2, you're going to grab a level 2. And you're going to now place it on that section. You're also going to gain the benefit of that site. It's a bit random. You don't know what you discovered. Send your worker, get something random from the stack. After that, you're going to grab a guardian tile and place it above that location. All right, the 4th action is defeating those pesky guardians that are attached to dig sites in level 1 and level 2 when you discover them. All right, so as an action, when you have a worker on a site, whether it be having it there because you discovered it or in future rounds when you place your worker there, all right, as an action, you can defeat the guardian by paying the cost below the guardian. Usually it's always resources or cards or whatever it may be. All right, once you defeat him, well, you're going to put this token near your player board area. All right, you're going to ask yourself, why would you want to defeat guardians? Well, that's because at the end of the game, each guardian that you defeat is going to be worth points. And also, guardians that you defeat do have an icon on the top right of the card. And at any time during your turn and future turns, you can flip over the guardian to gain the benefit of the top right icon. So it could be a travel icon to use for traveling, or it could be a quick action. Again, I'm going to talk about quick actions later on in this video. All right, and the 5th action is doing research, which is moving your tokens up the research track out here on the right hand side. All right, so we do have 2 different tokens. We have the magnifying glass and the notebook, and each action is moving 1 token up 1 spot. So we start at the bottom. Your first movement can be on either space, but then when it comes back to your turn, you pick one of your 2 tokens and you move it up to the next spot. All right, some rules when moving up the track. First of all, there are connection rules. So if you're on this spot, for example, you can only move up to this one. It's not really connected to this spot. Whereas if I was here, I can either go to this one or this one. All right, there's a payment cost to move up as well. The payment cost is where you're going right below it. Sort of between the connections, there's always resources you need to pay to the general supply to make that jump. All right, but once you make that jump, a couple of benefits you're going to get. First, if there's a bonus tile there, well, then you're going to gain the benefit and then toss this back into the game box. Again, usually just resources. Then you're also going to get the benefit on the right hand side of the track. So if it's a magnifying glass, you're always going to look at the top icon of that row. All right, for example, here it would be a compass. And if it was a notebook, For example, if my notebook was here, I'm going to gain the benefit of the bottom square part over here. If it's a silver or gold icon, these reference the assistants. I'm going to talk about that in the next section. All right, other rules is that your notebook may never be at a higher level than your magnifying glass. So for example, if they're both on this row, well, I would have no choice but to move my magnifying glass. I would not be able to move my notebook. That's true no matter where it is in the row. For example, if it was like this, I would have to move this one up instead of this one. All right, and basically what we're doing is we're racing our tokens up the track to try to get to the end places over there. Now, if you do get your magnifying glass all the way to the top, all right, you're gonna place it in the farthest left space because it's gonna be worth more points at the end of the game. So first one there is 23 points, then 21, 20, and then 19. All right, the added benefit from getting there first, not only points, but you're gonna go flip over the extra bonus tiles that are there. You're gonna pick the one that you want, gain the benefit for it, and return the other 2 or 3 back on the stack. All right, this can get returned back to the box after you get the benefit. All right, once your magnifying glass has hit the top of the track, this is called the Lost Temple, a new option opens up for you. So now when performing the research action, instead of moving up your notebook, obviously because you can't move up your magnifying glass anymore, you could sort of discover the Lost Temple, which is taking one of the temple tiles up here. All right, but it is not free. You do need to pay resources to grab it. And as you can see, there are 3 different levels of temple tiles. There's gold, silver, and bronze. But when performing this action, you don't need to go in order. You can take any tile that you want. All right, now the cost to take any of these tiles is indicated right below. All right, so any of the bronze ones, you have to pay the resources right below them. If you want a silver one, you actually have to pay the combination cost of the 2 bronze ones below. And if you want the gold one, you have to obviously pay all the resources of all the bronze ones below that. All right, let's circle back 2 seconds and talk about assistants. So like I mentioned about the research track, when you're going up with your notebook, you could be picking up assistants, and those are the silver icons when you reach with your notebook. All right, so when that happens, all right, you're gonna go look at the stack of assistants. You're gonna take one of them without looking at the ones below and add it to your player board. So let's just say I wanted this one. You'll take it and you'll add it to one of your 2 available slots on your player board. So as you can see, you have space for 2 assistants, which makes sense because there's only 2 silver icons on the track. All right, now, when talking about the gold one, this is upgrading your assistant. So you're making them a little better. What you're gonna do is you're gonna pick either of the 2 assistants that you have and you're gonna flip it over to its other side, which becomes a stronger version of that assistant. You can even see below its power, main power, the ability that it'll have when you flip it over. All right, but that's how you get assistants. All right, so we just talked about all the main actions in the game, and it's a very important concept to understand the difference between a quick action and a main action. All right, a main action is gonna take up your whole turn. Once you do it, it's gonna go on to the next player. All right, whenever you see a lightning bolt, this is a quick action. This does not take up your whole turn. You do it before your main action to gain the benefit of that resource or card or whatever it may be. Now, doesn't matter if it's a card, it's an assistant, whatever, when it's a lightning bolt, it's a quick action. You can just do it and it doesn't count. You can still continue your turn. All right, now there's 4 main places you're gonna see the lightning bolt icon. Now, if it's a card, you know, you just play the card before your main action. You get the resource of the card. So in this case, it would be a compass. After you play the card, it's gonna go into your active discard pile. Pretty simple. All right, if it's an assistant, you're just gonna tap it. You're gonna gain the benefit of that assistant. All right, obviously at the end of the round, we're gonna untap these so you can regain the benefit. If it's a guardian, obviously for the lightning bolt symbol on the top right, you're just gonna flip it over. And finally, the last place is up here to gain the benefits of your idols. All right, so what you can do is you can slot in the idol into one of these 4 spots, well, starting always from the left, and gain one of the benefits indicated on the left. All right, so I can move this icon over here to cover up this spot, which is essentially losing me a point at the end of the game, to gain one of these benefits. And here it's drawing a card, getting a gold and a compass, 2 tablets, an arrowhead, or spending a gold to get a gem. All right, those are pretty much all the quick actions that you're going to be able to see out on the game board. All right, there you go. Pretty much everything we've covered up to now are all the rules to the game. All right, the last thing I did forget to mention is passing is an action and it takes up your whole turn. And like I mentioned in the intro, once everyone passes, that signals the end of the round. All right, and there's 5 rounds to the game. right, so now let's just talk briefly about the sort of round reset slash refresh. All right, so the first thing you're going to do, each player is going to return their workers back to their possession. Now, if you are returning a worker where a guardian is still present, you are going to gain a fear card into your deck. All right, you're going to take one of those fear cards and you're going to add it to your active discard area. All right, but in this case scenario, I'm not where a guardian is, so I'm just going to return these back to my player board. All right, the second thing you're going to do is if you still have a card in your hand, let's say you could have passed with cards in your hand, you're not forced to play them all. All right, you have a couple of options. You either keep this card for the next round or you discard it into your active discard area. All right, after that, you're going to take your active discard, you're going to give it a good shuffle, and you're going to add it to the bottom of your deck. So that's one of the main differences in this game to a traditional deck builder. Your discard doesn't just keep generating until your draw deck is empty. It gets refreshed at the bottom of your deck at the end of every single round, no matter what. All right, after that, if you had used any of your assistants, you're going to sort of untap. All right, next, you're going to pass the first player marker over to the next player. All right, and then there's just some stuff to refresh on the top of the board over here. So the cards closest to the staff get discarded. And by the way, the two discard areas up here for the artifacts and the items are right next to the draw stack. You might have some cards where you have to discard it. But anyway, you're going to add these to their active discard sections. You're going to move the staff over, and then you're going to refill. In this case, it would just be 2 more artifact cards. All right, and there you go. You're reset and you're ready to start the next round. All right, now after 5 rounds, instead of resetting, you're going to go straight into endgame scoring. All right, so there you go. There's not much to say about endgame scoring. Basically, everything is scored at the end of the game. Nothing is scored throughout the game while you're playing. But you're going to be looking for those purple icons with all the components in your possession. All right, but if you do want a very quick rundown, let's just go through the score sheet. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to score both your magnifying glass and notebook, add both those scores together because they score separately, and add it to the spot. So if you did make it to the end and your notebook made it, like, let's say over here, you would score 23 plus 2 points, let's just say. All right, next, if you ended up buying any of these temple tiles, you add those scores over there. Next, after that, you're going to score for your idols. All right, so like I mentioned in the previous section, all your idols are going to score 3 points each, and you're also going to score the uncovered sections up here on your player board. So remember, by taking some bonus actions over here, or quick actions, you are going to be covering up the points, so you are losing points to take those actions. All right, but you tally all that together and you place it here. After that, for each of your guardians, and remember that's 5 points each. After that, you're going to go through your whole entire deck, and for each item and artifact card, if you look at the bottom right hand side, you are going to score some points for those cards. You add up all that together, place it here, and finally you're gonna get -1 points for each of your feared cards. You're gonna see a -1 over there. All right, you add up all of those points together for each of the players. Whoever has the most is gonna win Lost Ruins of Arnak. So there you go. We're pretty much done. All I'm gonna do is in the next few sections, I'm gonna talk about this slight rule difference if you're playing on the other side of the board with the snake. And finally, I'm gonna cover also the solo rules because they're pretty interesting. They use the tiles right over there. All right, so this is the snake temple side of the board. So for the rest of the board, you're just going to set it up exactly like you would the other side. Go to the setup section to see all that. And the differences come on this side. All right, the main difference being over here, this is sort of called the assistant rescue spot. So you're going to take the amount of assistants equal to the number of players, shuffle them, revealing only the one on the top to all the players and placing it in the stack. All right, so we only know what the top one is going to be. All right, besides that, you just fill it up exactly like you would filling up the available bonus slot spaces. All right, the only rule differences between this and the other side is when moving up this track. Just a couple of things. When crossing the idle space, you need to pay an idol. All right, and it has to be an idol that you haven't used to get a bonus. So once you have it down here, you have to give up the idol into the general supply, and you'll be able to move your magnifying glass from this row up into this row. All right, now when you reach this assistant row, what you're going to do is you're going to take the full stack of available assistants. If you're not the last player, if you're the last player, there should be only one, so you'll just take that one. All right, but you'll look at them secretly and you'll take one of them. All right, returning the rest back, and the one that you took is going to just slot into your board exactly like a regular assistant from the other side of the game board, except it is going to come onto your board already exhausted, so you can't use her or him that round. You're going to have to wait till it gets refreshed. All right, and that's pretty much all the rules to this side of the board. All right, so let's talk about solo play. All right, so at a very high level, the way the solo system works here is you're basically playing a 1v1 head-to-head two-player game against an AI opponent, and you're going to try to beat their score at the end of the game, all right, because they are going to still tally some points, and you're going to try to beat it. All right, now whenever it's the AI's turn, we're basically going to set up an action deck where when it's their turn, you flip over the next card, it's going to tell you what action they're going to do, and then it's going to jump back to your turn, you're just going to go back and forth, back and forth. All right, but that's a high level view of what you're going to be doing. All right, so first let's take care of the setup because it's pretty simple. All right, because it's a 1v1 game, you're going to pretty much set up the main board and everything as if you were playing a two-player game. So don't forget to use your blocking chits and don't forget to update the sort of research track on the right. Don't fill it up for 3 and 4 players. All right, for your personal board, you're going to set up exactly like normal. Except you're always going to be second player throughout the whole game, every single round. So you're going to start the game with a dollar and a compass resource. All right, then we come back to the AI and set up their whole board. All right, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take a board of a color you're not using. You're going to flip it over and it looks completely different. And this is only used in solo play. All right, next, you're going to give all of the workers of all the colors you're not using into their supply because they're going to need a lot of workers to cover up some spots. And next, we're going to have to set up their action deck. All right, this is where we need to sort of tool it according to how hard we want the game to be. All right, because we are going to notice there is some standard cards that are in every game, but then there are red and green versions of every other type of card. All right, as you can see, obviously, the more red cards you add into that deck, the harder the game is going to be. So you can sort of say that the game can be from 0 to 5 difficulty, depending on how many red cards we're adding to the action deck. All right, so for example, if you want to make it a difficulty 2 game, you'll have only 2 red cards in here. So for example, let's say I want to use this red card and this red card, and then the other versions of that are going to be the green ones. All right, so we're going to use 3 green and 2 red. You're going to shuffle this all together. And this is basically going to be the AI action deck. And then you're going to place it on the left over here and throw these back into the box. And you're pretty much ready to start the game. All right, so like I had mentioned, the AI starts every single round, but whether it's his first action or 5th action of the round, it's the exact same way. You're just going to flip over the next action tile from the deck and perform that action for the AI. All right, then it's going to jump back to the player. They're going to do their action, then jump back to the AI, flip over to the next one, doing that action. All right, just going back and forth until the round is over. All right, now some very key pieces of information before we continue. First of all, AI never collects resources. All right, they have no need. Whenever they have to pay for anything, whether it's for items, artifacts, going up the research track, it's automatic. You just do it. All right, second thing, for the research track, they're only going to need a magnifying glass from a different color, and they're just going to be moving it up the track. All right. Third, if they're collecting anything in the game, whether it's items or guardians, you're going to place it on their board, even idle tokens. All right. And lastly, if there's any dispute on what they're supposed to be following on their turn, all right, because there might be 2 possible routes, you're going to use the arrow from the top of the draw deck to sort of signify if you're going to go left or right. So random example here, this one you have to buy the item with the lowest cost, but if let's say 2 items cost 1 and one's on the left and one's on the right, well, you're going to buy the one on the left. All right, basically if you're going up the research track, if you can go on the left path or the right path, again, look at the arrow, it's going to tell you what to do. All right, and that's basically what you're going to be doing. When it's their turn, you flip over a tile, jump back up to me. Oh, there is another very key piece of information is the AI will go through all the tiles every single round no matter what. So even if you've passed, you're still going to perform the action of the AI until they run out of tiles. All right, at the end of the round, you're basically going to shuffle up the tiles and you're going to set it up for a new round. All right, so every round they're going to do all 10 tile actions. All right, so now let's talk about all these 10 actions and how they work. All right, so let's go through all the action tiles. All right, this icon means buying an item, and this means buy the item with the lowest point total. The red version is get the one with the highest red total. I'm going to talk about these ones later. This one says defeat a guardian at a site where they have workers. If there is no guardians available, they're going to do the move up the research track. All right, this icon means basically don't perform this tile on the 5th round of the game. If you're playing the red version of this, this icon is not there. All right, this is the discover a site tile. All right, so they're going to discover a level 1 or level 2 site tile. This icon means add a guardian to that site. If it's blank, don't add a guardian. Again, the same icon, don't do it in the 5th round of the game. These ones we'll talk about later. Again, this is just a research track. When you see this, it means buy one of the assistants and get rid of it from the game. Pretty simple. And this one is like buying an item, except it's buying an artifact, and this is the red version, so it's obviously get the one that has the most point total. All right, the only extra thing I do have to mention is when discovering a site, they do pick up the idols. All right, and this is a bit weird. What you need to do is you're gonna look for the idol on their track. All right, so you're gonna slot it in if they haven't picked one of that type before. All right, so if they didn't get one of these, you're gonna put it face up over here. All right, the second time that they get one of that type, what you're gonna do is you're gonna flip it over and add it to the -1 space right over there. All right, so they're gonna get a bit less points if they're getting some of the same type. All right, and finally, we're going to talk about the worker placement spots. All right, so these just occupy the worker placement spots that are on the board. All right, so the way they work is you're going to take any of the available workers and you're going to fill up the one of the spots working up, working your way down. Sorry, starting up, working your way down. So it's going to try to block some of the level 2 sites before blocking the level 1, before blocking the basic ones. All right, and basically you're looking for a site that will give you that type of resource. All right, so if you had this one, it's going to look for a site that can give you a gem. So it's going to look on level 2. Could any of them give you a gem? No. Work to the first level of level 1, then the second level of level 1. All right, let's see, there's a couple of options that they can give you a gem. Well, then it's going to follow the arrows on one of the other tiles to tell you which one it's going to block. And basically it's just blocking the worker placement spots. And basically that's how it works. All right, you're going to flip over to the next one. You're going to do your turn, blah, 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 blah. At the end, calculate your score against them and see who wins. All right, by the way, again, when they collect items, it goes, and artifacts, it goes here. When they collect guardians, it goes here. And there you go. So you're going to calculate all their points from the board and from where their guy is on the research track and see who wins. All right, so those are the solo rules. Click on the link below. I'll probably have a playthrough in solo, and we'll see you in the next one later.